Do horror trailers ruin everything? We will discuss. Hit the button. Let's get started. Triangle. Triangle is a 2009 British-Australian psychological horror thriller where a group of friends suffer a yachting accident and take refuge on a cruise ship drifting in the open seas. However, they quickly realize they were better off floating on the wreckage of that upturned yacht. Hey there, hi there, ho there, Andrew here, the horror host of Generations X, Y, and Z inside Davis Manor, where we review TV shows, horror movies, and talk about haunts. And I would like to go ahead and thank Alan Bryan for giving me this movie to go ahead and review. When I say give me this movie to review, he literally sent this to me, sent it to the P.O. box that is down in the description box below if you want to go ahead and check that out and see if you want to send me something. No guarantees if you send me a movie to watch that I will like it. Just telling you right now, it might stink, and I might make a review saying it stinks, but it's the best way for me to review a movie that you really want me to review. With that being said, Alan is also a patron of the channel, so thank you very much, Alan, for being a patron. If you don't know what that is, go ahead and click the link above. It's a great way to give back to the channel and help the channel grow. During the opening credits is an artistic choice of the director clipping some scenes which normally annoy me, but hey, that's what he did, and that's how it goes. And we find out that Jess, who's played by Grey's Anatomy's Melissa George, is a single mother, and her son, Tommy, is autistic, and she's trying to put things together to go on a boating trip. Jess is clearly stressed out, much along like me, because I've spent hours trying to record this thing, and it hasn't worked. This actually was supposed to air last week. But anyways, son Tommy is freaking out, and strange things are happening around Jess's house, like the doorbell is ringing, and no one's there. And the writer-director, named Christopher Smith, does a decent job visually telling us Jess's story all within the opening credits, but I'm more impressed with his decisions of overall shots. The film is very visually impressive. We then cut to the Triangle, and that's the name of the yacht that is owned by Greg, played by Michael Dorman. He has invited his friends that are married, Sally and Downey, and Sally is rude and prude and completely unlikable. Downey is the complete opposite and laid back, like they're yin and yang or something. They invite their friend Heather, hoping to match her with Greg, but neither side is interested, and the last in the cast is Greg's shipmate, runaway teen Victor, who happens to live with Greg, the then 19-year-old Liam Hemsworth. This is a strong cast. I like everybody, even the unlikable characters I like. The actors do a great job. They feed off of each other's energy. The acting is believable in a very unnatural script. After leaving the Florida harbor, we see that Jess is still very aloof, and Heather is really only there for exposition. Out at sea, the wind dies down, and a storm is approaching. A distress signal is sent from somebody that they don't know, but they go ahead and listen on, and the Triangle, which is motorless because it's a sailboat, is capsized in the storm. Heather is then swept away into the water while the others try to survive by climbing on to an overturned yacht as the storm clears. A huge ocean liner arrives, and after they scream for help, they are able to board it as it passes the wreckage. Sally is in hopes that her friend Heather is already on board as they explore. This is about 20 minutes into an hour and 40-ish minute film. It is a strong first act. I don't want to spoil anything else, so I'm not going to go into the plot any further than right here. This film has all the twists and turns that a good psychological thriller has, and it has the right amount of blood, kills, stabbies, whatever you want to call it, to make a good slasher film as well. The script is weaved with great care, but the ending, however, I just don't think lives up to the hype that the story builds to, which will be discussed in the spoiler section. Which means this brings us to the danger zone, where I go ahead and I give scores on the different categories that I've been talking about with an overall finished rating. So let's start off with the direction. The direction I give an 8, above average. I enjoyed the cinematography. The visual attention was there. There are some fun nods visually, like Greg and Jess walking into cabin 237, which is a nod to The Shining. I like stuff like that. And the acting, I give an above average 8 as well. It's believable. The characters are there. You're watching it. I felt like these actors were these characters, even with actors that I've recognized from other roles. Now narrative, I give a 7. And I kind of curve this a little bit. It was well written. I enjoyed it. But there are different angles that you can look at, and I'll get more into that into the spoiler section. But the ending kind of curved it down a little bit. The genre, I give an 8, above average. It is a good psychological thriller. It has it down packed. You are experiencing what the characters are experiencing. You're trying to figure it out. That's what a good psychological thriller has. You know, when's this going to happen? There's good anticipation, I guess you could say, with that. It has the deadly horror threat down as well. There's lots of deaths in different ways. It's enjoyable on that. And speaking of enjoyment, we're going to give this a 7. I like this movie. I think a sequel would have worked with it. However, if you don't make a sequel in 10 years, it's probably not going to happen. I guess you could say the ship has sailed. Oh, whatever. Anyways, the rating that I give this is a 7.6. I think it's worth the cost of a DVD. I don't know how much Alan paid for this, but again, thank you very much, Alan, for this. It might not be a must for your library, but you should watch the film. Just don't watch the trailer first. Now let's get into the spoiler section. Now I'm going to be discussing the ending and the trailer here, and if you haven't seen the film yet, stop. If you haven't seen the film and watched the trailer, you've probably already watched the movie now. But if you haven't seen the trailer and you've watched the film, stick around. If you haven't seen the trailer and you haven't seen the film, stop. Come back. I'll wait for you. Just go and watch the film. After the survivors make it onto the ship, which is about 20 minutes into the movie, Jess goes and defeats the killer 20 minutes later, is the sole survivor, and then she sees people stranded on a capsized yacht. Oh, wait, it's her and all of her friends that were killed screaming for aid. Well, that just means that everything is on repeat, basically. So I automatically thought of how the movie was going to end, and I was kind of right to a certain extent here. Smith's script is well done because there isn't just one loop. It's a pleasant twist. There are some things here that are not addressed, though. And some of the survivors on the ship die in 2 different ways. Some of them die the same way twice, but some of them die in 2 different ways. But we only follow one story, so let me explain. Sally is killed by a shotgun, and then again she is killed bleeding out from being stabbed. I mean, look at those bodies! I stopped counting at 25 heads. Some bodies were stacked on top of each other. Just remember, this is only one way that she died. So that means that she's been killed like a minimum of 50 times, just like the entire cast, except for Jess. And with the body stacking up and the charm necklace stacking up in the drain, we are under the impression that these are duplicating the events. They're not respawning, otherwise the bodies of Sally would have disappeared, which leaves me wondering, how many Jesses are there? We see masked Jess fall off the ship dodging Sweater Jess's axe swing, which spawns her on the beach in Florida right before the ending of the film. This is the first time we see Jess go through the event. However, around the 56-minute mark into the film, we see Jess confront Jess, stopping Victor from trying to strangle Jess in retaliation for Jess impaling Victor. If you haven't seen this movie, you now know how confusing this is. You should stop. We never see that Jess's storyline. When I say that Jess's storyline, I mean the Jess that was confronted by the other Jess with the shotgun. We're all under the impression that this actually happens as one story. But 10 minutes later, the Jess who got shot in the head is being bludgeoned to death by another Jess and then dumped off the ship through the angle of the Jess that we are following. Now, I can only really guess at this because I didn't watch the cast and crew interviews that are on here, and maybe I should have done that before doing this review. But I can only guess there's 2 storylines here. One is Jess, who we are following, who ends up being the mass killer at the end, winding up on the shore, getting knocked off by herself earlier, or something like that. The other story lines up with Jess bludgeoning the Jess that got shot in the head and dumping her body. And we can assume, in some type of way, and you know what that means, that she ends up being the one that's shot in the head. She could also be the one that was running away when Jess confronted Jess, making sure that Victor didn't choke out Jess. You following me? Because I think I lost myself. But if I'm correct on that, I feel like the script completely blew that over. Completely. Because we don't know anything on that. We're only following one Jess right now. Also, when Jess gets knocked off the ship, she ends up killing herself before she gets onto Greg's yacht, meaning that she now knows everything that has happened in the movie. All storylines because she has witnessed them all, even though she hasn't lived them all. Meaning that she is the Jess that we have been watching from the first movie, and she is now the backstory for all storylines of all Jesses. So why would she be saying stuff like deja vu if she knew everything? I mean, you might understand why I don't dig the ending right now, because there is some holes here. Things just don't make sense. And you can't just say, well, her mind was wiped. What's the point? She's on a heroine's journey, basically. She's supposed to adapt and overcome. You're going to just say, oh, she got mind wiped and we're going to start all over again? That's a waste. And speaking of waste, as far as the trailer goes, you see the death of Downey by shotgun. You see Greg get killed by a shotgun. Jess is unmasked as the killer. Victor is stabbed in the back of the head. Downey's throat is slashed. Greg is getting shot again. Heather's hand is being slipped away as she goes into the ocean. Jess is falling off the ocean liner in the mask. And there is a buttload of Sallys on top of the deck. That means every main character in this film, Downey, Greg, Victor, Heather, Jess, and one of the Sally's deaths are shown in the trailer. Missing is Sally being fatally shot by the shotgun, which only happens seconds after Downey. Who approved that? I mean, thanks to Alan, who told me not to watch the trailer before watching the film. And that brings us to the question, do trailers ruin horror movies? And that would be yes, they do. Production houses and distributors feel that they got to show you in a horror trailer people dying or right before people dying. You know, to convince us that it's a horror movie and people are going to die. Newsflash, you're a horror movie. We know it. We know people are going to die. It's what makes a good horror is suspense, tension, shock, all of that stuff. If you go and you throw it up in the trailer, there is no suspension or tension or shock because we're expecting that to come. It's not good at all. Hit that bell icon. That way you become part of the notification squad and you get notified the moment that I upload. And I will see you in the next video.